Well, happy summer, everyone. We're almost in summer. It feels like summer outside. And welcome to our June lunch bunch. It's great to see you all. We have a nice crowd today, and I'm sure it's going to get a little bit larger before we get started. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Andy Flynn, class of 86 and 98, and the director of alumni engagement at Mines. If this is your first lunch bunch, welcome. And for those of you who are regular attendees, thank you for your continued interest and support, and welcome back. We're glad to have you with us today as we continue our monthly look at the people and programs that make Minds great. Today, we shine the spotlight on one of our 4 alumni interest groups, the Women of Minds. As many of you may know, enrollment of female students has been steadily on the rise at Mines in the recent years, and now accounts for just over 30% of the student body. As part of his strategic plan, President Paul Johnson wants to increase this number to 40% by the time we hit our 150th anniversary in 2024. Our current Women of Minds president, Andrea Passman, has made great strides toward this goal by implementing programs and initiatives that engage, excite, and encourage our Minds women, both students and alum, to get involved and give back. And we are delighted to welcome Andrea today, as well as alumna Anjali Mcdonald, who will update you on what the group has been up to and what lies ahead. Before we start, any questions that you have submitted with your RSVP have been shared with our speakers. And if you think of questions during the program, please feel free to use the chat and we'll keep an eye on it. And if we run out of time and don't get to your question, we'll circle back with you after the program. All of our Lunch Bunch programs are recorded and can be accessed on the Lunch Bunch page of the alumni website at weare.minds.edu. So if you missed one, want to listen again, or would like to share the program with a friend, go to the bottom of this page to see the complete archive of our recordings. And lastly, if you have any ideas for future speakers or topics, we want to know about those. Please contact me or anyone in the alumni office with your suggestions. And with that, please join me in welcoming Andrea and Anjali to Lunch Bunch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Anjali and I are going to co-opt this a little bit today because there's only so much we can talk about with the Women of Minds. And considering that we have a bunch of new graduates out there, we also wanted to talk about best practices in terms of kicking your career off for a start, because that is probably one of the #1 topics that we hear requests for with the Women of Minds. So just real briefly, I'm Andrea Westcott Passman. I'm petroleum engineering 1998. And I am now the COO of Karis Oil and Gas here in Denver, Colorado. And, one of the big reasons that I wanted to get back involved in Mines is I know we all have a family of survivorship here in a way, but at the same time, the school has changed so much under President Johnson to be inclusive and really make sure that we're supporting our communities, particularly women. And Mel Westergaard really led the route on Women of Minds, and I can't say enough about what she has done to kickstart this organization and support the school. And in handing over the reins for the Women of Minds interest group, and in support of President Johnson's goal to increase females within the school, we really wanted to do a number of things. So one, we wanted to provide regular networking, involvement of all of our alumni, regardless of diversity, and provide professional development so people can really find access and ways to build the dream career and lives that they've been looking for. And Minds is such a unique place in that this is really a life-changing school for so many people. So how can we continue that along? And a couple of things with the Women of Minds. We just had our first inaugural big event for networking and professional development called the Forces of Minds, Elevating Women, last April. We'll be doing this annually. We brought in a guest speaker, Christy Effelman, that did a great workshop around learning how to speak about our successes and really how to brag about ourselves in order to, move up, move out, move whatever way we wanted to. And then we had a number of mentors that were alumni in the afternoon that covered various topics, from things like imposter syndrome to career advancement. And it was a great day of engagement for our women. So this is an annual event. We'll be doing that again in April. All are welcome, by the way. And then to continue having regular events for networking and professional development. With that, I'd like to introduce my guest today, our guest today, Anjali Mcdonald. She graduated from Mines in 1996. We'll forgive her for geology. We weren't in the same department. Anjali and I had a laugh, and the reason we came together, we didn't actually know each other at Mines, even though we were both there at the same time, which talks about the need to really grow our community. And I so appreciate Anjali saying she wanted to get involved. She's been an environmental consultant for 25 years in the mineral extractions divisions within North America and Africa. She's a professional engineer. What I really love about Anjali is her management style. Really not only takes strategy, but she has a beautiful way of engaging empathy to really move people forward. And I just so appreciate leaders that can do both together and make that a strategic differentiator for themselves. Currently, she is working with Nutrien as a remediation engineer. They are the largest producer of potash and the third largest producer of nitrogen fertilizer in the world. Very important to that. And a little bit of fun facts about Anjali, besides the fact that we never met each other until recently, but immediately kicked it off. Her and her husband of 27 years have 2 daughters, and one is a professional ballerina, which I can appreciate, having danced for many years in my life as well. And the other is a model and is a coach for special needs students. So special. So once again, thank you, Anjali, so much for joining us. And Anjali, maybe the first question I'll pop out with today, and for everyone else with questions, 2 ways to ask questions today. Raise your hand, Ruth is going to help us out, or put your question in the chat and we'll be sure to get to it. So we're going to talk briefly, Anjali, why did you want to get back involved with Mines?
You know, I think for many, many years, I was just, to be really frank, like I was glad to be out of school and I just wanted to, have a little distance. But, as I started working with people that were early career professionals, I realized that we all need support systems. And what I really would have loved to have back in the 90s when I was there was a stronger support system. And so I really wanted to just kind of put my money where my mouth was and show up for people who might need a person that they can call, that they can talk to, that they can reach out to. So it seemed like a good way. And like you said, Andrea, it's crazy that we didn't bump into each other. Well, we probably did, but we didn't know it when we were there. But, I think it's been just such a great connection that you and I have. And I love what Women in Mines is doing. And so I'm excited to be involved.
Well, and I love that you brought up about the community piece, because I think one of the things that's really changed for Mines, and I see a lot of our senior people out there on the phone that graduated many years ago like us, is that those interest groups, the community, and all the support at Mines has dramatically changed in the last few years. I know many of us on the call remember the days where they used to say, look to your left, look to your right. 2 out of 3 of you are not going to be here next year. And those days are over because, the attrition rates have dramatically improved and we're really retaining our students. And, the alumni engagement, I think you're right, Anjali, people go away, but then they come back for that support. And Women of Mines is one of those groups. Andy, feel free to jump in here. I know we have 3 other groups around aeronautical engineering, if I recall, and there's 2 others.
Yeah, there's entrepreneurship and innovation, and there's leadership and social responsibility.
There we go. So for all of you out there that are looking for interest groups to get involved with at Mines, please go to the We Are Mines page and you can find all of those as well. And so, so with that, I think let's change gears just a little bit, since I know we have a lot of time and you can only talk about women of minds so much. Let's talk about early career success and like new job success, because this is a hot topic with the Great Resignation, with so many people graduating right now, with a lot of people pivoting and reinventing their careers for a second career or a third career. I can't tell you how many phone calls I get from friends and alumni that are like, I just made a big change. How do I knock it out of the park, out of the gate? And if there's one person that knows how to really coach people along the way, it's Anjali on how to do this. So, I think back to some of my first jobs, and, day one's always a little confusing. Like, you show up and you got a computer, HR is onboarding you, do you know what to do? Do you not know what to do? So, Anjali, what do you think engineers should do on day one? And then what do you think they should do for really the first 90 days to make sure that they're hitting the ground running?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I would start by saying is, I think each of us have a slightly different experience. And so what I'm going to talk about is really related to what my experiences have been and what I have seen in some of the early career professionals that I've supported through the years, people on my team and other ways. So, there's obviously, it's a spectrum, and there's different experiences that will influence in different ways. So that's my backdrop. But, I'd say day one, and I just went from being a consultant for 25 plus years to industry like 6 months ago. And that was a big change, a little bit of a reinvention. It's similar work, but that's just the other side of the table, and it does make a difference. But I think, a couple of things that I always try to think about on day one. One is to meet as many people as you can at all levels, not just your peers, not just your supervisors, but, ask about leadership, introduce yourself to the person who runs the front desk, talk to the custodial folks and get their name. Try to find ways that you can integrate yourself into the community of that company as quickly as possible, so that when you're walking in on day two and the name of the person who is behind the front desk, you can say hi to that person rather than, kind of head down, just walking in. I have to carry a little notebook around with me on day one because my memory is trashed. And so, I keep track. The worst thing is, like, you're one meeting many and there are many meeting one. And so, if you can just kind of, jot it down. I met Andrea. She's the COO. She likes to, used to be a dancer, so jot a little thing or two down about people, and nobody's going to be bothered by that. I like to ask a lot of questions, especially at the beginning of a new position. When I'm being told what I'm going to do, when I understand what's going on with the company, ask that question of why. Why is this important? Why are we doing it this way? How does this fit into the vision of the company? Just to understand, like, my little role within the organization, how is it impacting the bigger picture? And I think that just, again, kind of helps you settle into the community that you're stepping into and the space that you're stepping into. And then the last thing I would recommend is making sure that you speak up. Set that expectation that they're going to hear your voice. And I think that's really hard, especially when you're fresh out of school, maybe only a couple of years out of school, starting a new position. You want to do the right thing, say the right thing, but even just, get some of those softball questions in the back of your mind before you walk in on the first day. And that way, if you feel like you're kind of freezing up a little bit, you can pull out one of those easy lobs that you can just toss over the fence and have something where it's not you just intaking information, but you're engaging and going back and forth with the people that you're in maybe your tour guides, your supervisor, whoever it is that you're working with.
I love that. You mentioned ask a lot of questions. And so I see a good friend of mine online today, Leslie Armentrout. Leslie and I were roommates back in the day. Leslie and I have worked together. Leslie just started a new job. And one of the things I loved about Leslie, when she starts a new job, she does ask a ton of questions. I mean, and I feel like a lot of people think too many questions are almost off limits. And I know when I've gotten into a new job and you ask a lot of those questions, sometimes a lot of new challenges filter up. And going back to your support group or your personal board of advisors is a great way to get support to work through those early days. And another shout out for Women of Minds, that's another great place to go find mentors, to go build your personal network of advisors to help you really be successful in those early days. Absolutely right about lots of questions. So Anjali, what about taking that then to sort of the first 90 days? Anything else you would do in the longer run to make sure that, a quarter in, you're on the same track?
Learning more about the company for sure. And I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. Most companies have things like town halls or department meetings, whatever they call them. Make a point to attend those and hear from, different people's perspectives, what's going on, what's important at that moment in the company. You can actually go to your company's website and you can dig up shareholder presentations. You can read annual reports, sustainability reports, ESG reports. And then I like to look at the competition, right? Like, what is the biggest competitor to the company that you've just joined? And what are they doing? What are they talking about on their social media? Or what are they talking about when they talk to their shareholders? What are some of their goals? And then just kind of putting all those pieces together to get a better understanding of what's going on in your company. I think figuring out the people that you're engaging with, understanding personalities, getting to know somebody. Do they like to communicate once a week? Do they like to communicate once an hour? Do they want it to be an IM message? Do they want a formal email? Like, you can kind of start to determine the best way to establish those lines of communications. And then I'd say, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I was going to say the last thing that I would do is just make sure you understand expectations. That could be on a daily task. It could be related to like your annual performance review. But asking, again, I say ask questions all of the time. It's such a great way to get vulnerable with somebody and really connect as a human. And so I would say just make sure you understand the expectations for the role that you have and what you're doing, and get those mentors and sponsors and coaches lined up and starting to meet with them so that you've got that ability to dig a little bit deeper when you're ready.
Couldn't agree. Neither. So can Tanya Allen. Tanya, you're out there. You talk about creating a 30, 60, and 90-day plan. Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So this is a technique that a friend of mine named Wendy got from, some interview site, but I found that it works really well. Oh, might be that one. Anyway, so yeah, it's just a really simple 30, 60, 90-day plan where you've got like one slide for your 30-day activities, one slide for your 60-day activities, one slide for your 90-day activities. And like I said, I put this together as part of my interview package, with my resume and my brag book and all that other stuff. But then when I start a new job, I'll bring that, to my first day. I'll work with my manager to update that 30, 60, 90-day plan with his input or her input. And we'll agree upon that. And then that's what I'll use to execute. And I can kind of show progress towards, meeting those goals, or if something's getting in my way of, how, for example, I'll put in more details of like, okay, if I'm going to introduce myself to, 10 people, I'll put names in those people and I'll get feedback of who those specific people that he thinks or they think I should meet. I keep saying he, I'm going to start saying she when I share this story, but, but yeah, so that, she thinks, hey, I think you should, and I make sure I'll have different levels to Anjali's point. I want to meet people at the front desk. I want to meet, people above me, people who might be working for me, people who will be, lateral to me. I'll put details in that plan and then I'll execute on that plan.
Love that, Tanya. And for those of you who have not read this book, I learned about this in my MBA. This is my Bible for new jobs. It's called The First 90 Days. It is one of the best plans out there on how to get her done. I mean, I've given this book away to, I can't tell you how many new hires, and worked off of this, keys to success. So speaking of that, I think I read an article this morning in the Wall Street Journal about people resigning and switching jobs within the first 30 days, which for a lot of us is like, what? Like, can't even imagine. I mean, I think the shortest amount I've ever really stayed in a job is a year. And I think that's because I got riffed at the end of it, which happens a lot in oil and gas. And, Anjali, this is a good one. I think you've talked about this before. What if you get to a job, and especially given just how much people are changing jobs very quickly now, what if you get there and it doesn't turn out to be what you thought it was going to be? And how would you handle that?
I mean, maybe it's going to turn out better than you thought it was going to be. Like, kind of give yourself some space to be open to it shifting and adjusting. Give it a shot, see what happens. It might not be what you were promised or what you expected, but it could actually be something really cool. So, don't just throw in the towel right away just because, they said you were going to be designing bridges and now you're designing buildings, right? Find a space to give yourself some time. And I would say, make sure you speak up, talk to people, say, this is not what I expected. This is a little different than I thought it would be. But if you can ask questions, express that concern, don't just go straight up your chain, maybe talk to folks laterally as well. And then once you're in a company, it's always easier to shift around within that company. So learn a little bit more about what's going on in your company. And maybe there's something else going on that you're like, well, I really like the company. I don't really love what I'm doing now. And it wasn't exactly what I thought I wanted to be doing, but there's this other position that's now open. And so kind of keep your eye out for that. But then, of course, you have to know when to say when. If something doesn't feel right or it's unsatisfying or you're unhappy, you have to listen to that instinct in yourself and make sure you react and respond to it and know when to say, there's no resume padding that is important enough for me to be this unhappy. And, if you're in a job interview and they're like, well, why did you only stay at that job for 90 days? You can find a very diplomatic way of saying that it wasn't a good fit. And so, you can't worry about that kind of stuff if it's a bad situation.
I would say never burn a bridge, no matter what. You never know who you're going to bump into. I mean, how many of us have seen managers and coworkers back at other companies, especially if you're here in Denver? Rebecca, I see you made a great comment in the chat about looking for age diversity in your mentors. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And if you had an employee out there who was struggling and they were new to the job like that, how would you help them?
Well, I'm retired, and I talk to a lot of young people here who are in the oil industry. I live in Midland, and they want to hear the old war stories and what it was like, and what it was like when I was in the oil industry in the 80s and early 90s before I went into academia. It's just a completely different environment now, and the stories I tell and the experiences I had are informative, I hope, but they're not current. And like I said in my comment, I have the ones I choose to tell over and over again. And I think that I don't change them every time I tell them, but they really sort of do lose the emotional content. And so if you're talking to somebody who's been with a company for 2 or 3 years, that doesn't mean they can't be a good mentor for you. You don't always need to go look for the person who's nearing retirement. And I just have discovered that. So I'm glad to talk to people about what it was like and what my experiences are. But I have to realize that they may be a little bit stale at this point.
Yeah, no, Rebecca, I think you nailed it. I saw a lot of head nodding happening at the same time. And I see Gretchen's got a question out there. Gretchen, do you want to ask it or do you want me to read it for you?
Hi. So I'm just curious about how Women of Minds works with either students or recent grads, because y'all have great advice and you've put a lot of thought into these things and you have experience, which they don't. So I'm curious as to how you're connecting with students.
This is a great thing. And this is going back to what President Johnson is looking for. So a couple things around that. One, the Forces of Minds event that was in April, which I hope you'll all attend, was not only for our alumni and alumni, it is open, but also we did sponsor a number of students who attended as well. And it was about a third students. So when we did some breakout groups and people got to choose their mentoring sessions, they got to choose topics that were relative to them. One of the great things that I saw come out of that event was connections were made and people are still talking. So that's one. Two, Women of Minds and many of our other interest groups and even across the interest groups at Minds does provide mentoring. Andy, maybe you want to pop in a little bit and talk about the LinkedIn platform that we're using to make mentoring connections between students and alumni and alumni.
Yeah, so we're, I wouldn't probably say it's LinkedIn related. The platform is Cronus, and it's our Digger network is what you connect to in order to be part of the mentoring program. And that is open to everybody, and women can seek women can, you can seek anyone as a mentor, and can see what their background is to do so. Really underutilized. So, I highly encourage alumni to get involved and participate in the program. It will open up in August and runs for a semester generally for each student. And but it is one great way to give back and a really great opportunity to connect with students.
Thanks for that, Andy. Caitlin, I see that you popped something in there about a student pen pal. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I have actually two student pen pals, one through Minds and one through another university. And it's been a pretty awesome experience. I would say the Minds pen pal, she and I message back and forth. I think it was meant to be for a period of time, but we've just continued the relationship. She just graduated and is looking for opportunities. She wants to stay in Colorado, which my company is not in Colorado, but she's amazing. She's in mechatronics, so really, really great. Amazing to just kind of hear about her education, and it was fun to get to connect her to some of my own mentor and network. She's interested in aerospace, so I was able to connect her with several folks from Boeing, since I have personal relationships with lots of Boeing employees. And that was great. And then she was able to connect with my own robotics employees within my company as well. So I would encourage people to do it. And then she's created the pathway for me to actually come speak to the Society of Women Engineering organization at School of Mines, because being an alumni, I will say that wasn't as easy or as intuitive as perhaps it should be. And that was really great. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and we'll certainly be doing that again.
Thank you for that, Caitlin. You brought up something that's really important when we talk about our connection to the students is the Society of Women Engineers. So for all of you that are not a part of the Women of Minds, please get on the We Are Minds site. Andy, I'm sure we're going to send out a QR code for everybody as well to get your name into the interest group, because we're always looking for speakers to speak to the Society of Women Engineers, to speak to all of our scholarships, whether it's sister to sister or the Vanguard Scholars. These are where some of our women students are at on scholarship at Minds. The opportunities also to speak at various networking events. One of the key paradigms of Women of Minds is we want to be able to provide professional development at the same time of networking, because sometimes networking can be a little random, right? So that personal development, professional development, and then tied with making connections so that everybody can advance for what they're looking for. Whether, to Caitlin's point, they're looking for a job at Boeing, we have lots of women at Boeing, or whether they're looking for entrepreneurship opportunities, or they're thinking about going back for graduate school. Those are the connections that we're trying to create and pull through so that multiple generations can help each other out. That's what we're looking to do there. So speaking of just helping out and great engineers out there, one of the things that we hear a lot about, especially within the Women of Minds interest group, is imposter syndrome, which is about thinking that maybe I'm not quite good enough for the job, or I don't have all the skills to go apply for this job, or how did I get this job? When are they going to find out that I'm faking it till I make it? I'll say one of the misconceptions I had starting out as an engineer was nobody expects you to know anything. I thought everybody expected me to already know everything, because I had spent 5 years, 5 years to get through mines to show up on day one. So Anjali, I know you've got a lot of experience talking with people about imposter syndrome and working through that. What's your advice around that? Because that's a big challenge, not just for women, but for a lot of people.
Just people in general. I think, for maybe the first 20 years of my career, I felt like I was doing good, right? Like I felt comfortable in front of a room. I could talk technical. I could manage a team. I was in some training with a former firm, and they had brought in, career coaches and psychologists, and we took all these tests, and they talked to us about our strengths and our weaknesses. And partway through this, they basically gave us kind of labels and said, this is the person, this is your style, etc. And I was actually put into the imposter syndrome category. And just me, I tend to cry when I'm happy, sad, mad, glad, doesn't matter. The tears come. So I'm in this spot, and they're telling me like, this is, something that we're going to give you some skills and ways to manage it. And I started crying, because I felt like I finally understood myself a little bit better and what I had been challenged with in a professional space. So I do have some to share about imposter syndrome, because I feel like, I've been there and I lived it. And the first thing that I think really, really helped me was to actually label it and say what it is, read about it, learn about it, and be okay with it. Like it's a normal human response to challenging environments. And so, I would say if you're concerned about this, like, be okay with saying, yeah, that's me. I've got imposter syndrome. And then learn about it. And, find a mentor or sponsor that understands you and that understands the challenges around being in an imposter syndrome setting, and have them work with you. They can push you a little bit. They can give you some personal challenges, like, I want you to apply for that job, even if you don't think you're 1,000% qualified for it. If you're 75% qualified, you got to do it. You got to do it. Just go for it. I think working on our language, I think words are really, really important in our world. Whether that's talking to yourself or whether that's talking to other people, we have to work on our language. So I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean. Saving apologies for when you actually do something that deserves an apology, like you've hurt somebody or you've caused a major issue. Those are apology worthy. Showing up 2 minutes late for a meeting, not apology worthy. Giving yourself that space and grace to be okay with being a few minutes late, be okay with saying something. So working forward, rather having positive language, instead of saying, I'm sorry that I'm 2 minutes late for this meeting, maybe try saying, thank you for your patience while I was, wrapping up another meeting. And so I've worked with my teams. I've had a lot of teams that were highly women dominant. And so we would actually work on it as a team, because we were all doing it. We were all apologizing for things that didn't require apologies. And we worked on, instead of apologizing, using gratitude. And I think when we have gratitude for the people around us, especially when they've been patient with us or they've been understanding with us, we are actually building a stronger dynamic between people. And so, adding thank you moments into your day, I think are really important. Another example that I'll give you that was something that I needed to work on myself was tagging on little disclaimers at the end of things that I would say. This was a very imposter syndrome sort of thing that I used to do. So I would be maybe presenting something very technical and doing a great job and looking around the room and seeing the heads nod and feeling like I was making a good communication. But nonetheless, at the end, I would say something like, does that make sense? And it's unnecessary. If it doesn't make sense, they will ask. It degrades and downgrades your message. And so, just kind of working on these things, and we do it to ourselves. We do it when we talk to ourselves. We do it when we talk to other people. So those are just a couple of little things that you can do. I think the challenges is really important. Giving yourself some space to try new things and fail fast. That's like the new terminology, right? Like that's where innovation comes from. That's where great ideas come from. Throw a whole bunch at the wall and see what sticks, and be okay with failing.
So one of our mentors, Sarah Bartlett, she did a great engagement with the Women of Minds, and this is the kind of thing that happens all the time within Women of Minds, was around imposter syndrome. And this was an open group forum. Sarah is also on the environmental side. She's actually a certified coach now as well. Those of you who haven't met Sarah Bartlett, fantastic person, heavily now involved with Women of Minds. And Sarah talks about trying things on with your mentors and peers before you go into, those situations where that kind of imposter syndrome flares up. And, when we talk about Women of Minds, that's like the things that are happening inside this group is, learning about challenges that we all have and how to advance and move ourselves forward. So Ruth threw out a question out there about Women of Minds, specific goals and upcoming events and programs. So definitely one of our goals is to support President Johnson in his effort to increase women students at Minds. And why? The big question is why? I mean, yes, diversity is power, and especially when we look at all of our industries, the more diversity we have in the room, the better off everyone is. But really, when we look at our alumni that have come from the Women of Minds and went through the CSM experience, they've all had really great lives. Don't we want that for so many more women? And don't we want that our men out there, all of our men that are advocates and allies for the women out there? I know there's lots of daughters that have gone through Minds. I can't tell you, I think of Aaron Martinson, his daughter is at Minds right now, and so many other people, that how important it is to have that diversity in the room and to make sure that we're supporting, that we're all advocates and allies for the women. One of the big goals for Women of Minds in the next year is to improve our ability to network and gain access to the network. So back to what like Caitlin was talking about, if you're looking for a job at Boeing, let's make sure that we're connecting you with all of our alumni and alumni who are at Boeing to make that happen. So that's a big part of what we're trying to do. When we start talking about events, we have the annual event. We are constantly looking for speakers and volunteers to engage with our students and to engage with other alumni. So whether it's speaking with the Society of Women Engineers, whether it's speaking for new students, we have a number of events. Andy can speak to this. We're always looking for panelists to talk to parents about the School of Minds experience and how to be successful. Parents really want their kids to be, young adults to be successful today, or whether it's even speaking directly to the students. We have a pretty serious campaign when it comes to getting women in day one and then retaining them. The M Club has a number of opportunities to host incoming students, these host parties that are happening. This is the time of year that they're starting to set those up. I know we're in talks of how do we have some women-specific ones. Ruth, I think you told me there's 300, 400 incoming women right now, just in the Denver metro area alone that we're trying to host. And that engagement between our alumni and alumni who are supportive and our women is what keeps them within Minds, and then they tell their friends and they tell their friends. It's all about that community. So those types of engagements, those types of events is really where we're looking for everyone's help and support. I know so many of us are so grateful for our experience. We'll do anything to give back, especially when it comes to our time, our engagement, and the likes of that. But certainly one of our big goals in the next year is to really build up that network and then build the accessibility to that network, so we're making the right connections, not just random connections. Caitlin, another thing that popped up saying, please keep the virtual opportunities going. Couldn't agree more. We often get a little myopic sometimes in the Colorado point of view to connect, and I agree with you. Minds has done a great job with virtual platforms, Lunch Bunch included. Just throwing this out to the audience, any other thoughts that you have out there for the Women of Minds or other interest groups of ways to connect our alumni and students? Any other thoughts out there? Don't leave me hanging. Thank you for that link, Andy. If you're not mentoring, I know I've had 2 mentors for the last, or mentees for the last 2 years that I've kept through that program, and it's been a two-way mentoring situation for sure, especially when we talk about generational changes and making sure that we're meeting the needs of that. Particularly, that can be a challenge for all of us, and great news on that front too. So why don't we see if there's any other questions out there? If not, I'm going to throw another one at Anjali.
Hey, Andrea?
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to throw in there about getting involved, and certainly there are a lot of opportunities to get involved on campus, and we've started a volunteer program that people can sign into on the weare.minds.edu website, and it's in one of the drop downs. It'll say volunteers, and I'll put the link in here after I speak. And basically, if you sign into this, you register, and opportunities to volunteer will come to you based on what you say you're able to do, whether it's being a panelist, whether you want to get involved with students and student programs. One of the great things we have coming up in July, and I'd encourage people to try to participate, is Ore Digger Camp. And we look for alumni to come participate and engage with our incoming students at these camps. It's one day of your time. It's up in Winter Park, beautiful place to be, really enjoyable to get in around the students and feel their energy, their nervousness, help them make those first steps, towards coming into Minds, very positive ones. And it's a really great experience. I've been involved. We have 2 of those days in July, and there's one day in August right before school gets started. In addition, one more thing, this year the M Climb will be weighing rocks, and alumni can come have some fun with that as we challenge the students on the size of their rock before they go up the M. But we'll also have a table on the M Climb, and we're going to be handing out some rally towels to the new students. So lots of ways to get involved and have fun and participate. So please get involved.
I love that. And I thought they've always weighed the rocks. Did something happen along the way? I mean, 30 years ago, they were weighing the rocks.
Well, we're still weighing rocks, so it's not stopped.
Was it 10 pounds? Does anyone remember? Like a 10-pound rock?
10 pounds.
Yeah. 5. Leslie said 5. I believe Leslie would remember that too. Sounds good.
I'm pretty sure the lady said 8-pound rock.
So, Anjali, if you had any parting words for our Women of Minds, what would you say to them?
Wow, that's a tough one to
I know I sprung an unscripted one on you.
No, that's good. I think coming out of the technical space and connecting with other people, whether that's through something like what we're talking about here, whether that's within your own organization, whether that's within your community, I think the more we're such a technology-driven world with phones. I mean, I have 2 phones, a laptop, multiple screens, a keyboard, a mouse. Like, I'm surrounded by technology 24/7. And, I think what we have to really drive ourselves to do is remember the impact that we can have both as engineers and scientists in our communities and in our world, but also just as humans in our world. And, you know, the more we can engage and connect and find something that we're passionate about and reach outside of ourselves a little bit, if everybody can just do a little bit, it will add up to a lot. And I always like to think about the butterfly effect, which is from chaos theory, which I think is pretty cool, which is like a small flap of a butterfly's wings can impact the air current that will actually impact the trajectory of a tornado, for example, or a tidal wave on the other side of the world. Like, the idea is that a small change in one variable will actually have a much larger change in an unexpected way. And I just like to think that we're all these beautiful butterflies, and we need to all flap our wings just a little bit, and we're going to cause a big change, and we're going to make a big impact. And so, you know, the work that we do as scientists and engineers is important. We're doing amazing things, and we're impacting our world through that way. But I would just challenge everybody to try to impact the world in more ways and reach outside of themselves.
I love that, which is all what today was about with the Women of Minds. So I know Andy put the link in for the group. You have a call to action out there today. There's 2 call to actions. Our first one is look in the chat and please join the Women of Minds interest group if you're not one already. Or alternatively, I just put in the link for the Women of Minds LinkedIn group. You can get the same information through that site. We post everything in both sites of all the events that are coming up, of all the engagement opportunities that are out there. And for those of you that are advocates and allies to the Women of Minds, thank you all of our men for joining us today. We desperately need you. Reach out again, either you can join Women of Minds or you can join the volunteering efforts and also be a supporting member to help our women. Rod, I see you have a question out there.
I want to make a comment, and it's sort of the same thing that's been a problem I've had with Minds itself, is you don't brag about all your successes enough. I mean, I think part of Women of Minds, you just have like a little, 5-point thing of all the successes. I mean, the largest SWE organization in the country, and talk about the women that are in executive positions. I mean, you got Fran Vallejo and people like that. You should have these points that you can bring out about how successful the Women from Minds have been. That would be sort of my suggestion.
Rod, great advice. Thank you so much. Just like back to our topic at the last Forces event, it was all about nice women don't brag and how to brag on yourself. I also want to say thanks to our Alumni Magazine for featuring so many women over the last couple of months as well, and their successes. Can't appreciate the school's support on that enough. And Rod, you're right, we definitely do need to brag more, and we need those of you out there to brag for us too. So thank you for that. So with that, I'm going to flip it back over to Andy and Ruth to close this out. Thank you everyone for participating and for supporting the Women of Minds.
I will jump in here, I guess, at this moment. Hi, everybody. I think I've met most of you, but I'm Ruth Jones, and I work with Andy and the foundation staff here, and of course with amazing volunteers like Andrea and Anjali, and so excited to have this amazing momentum and energy, and we're on it. We are rolling, and it wouldn't happen without you guys as our leaders. And so thank you for that. I just wanted to say hello and let you know, give you some information about next month's program, as I usually do at this point in the program. If you don't know already, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. Lunch Bunch is a monthly thing, and it's really been fun. We've been virtual now for about 2 years, right? Everybody's gone virtual with COVID. But I think one thing we've learned is, even though these used to be in person, we prefer virtual, because look how many more people can log in from anywhere. You don't have to live in or work in or near Golden to participate. So yeah, I think it's been a good thing. So with that, I wanted to remind you that next month's program is coming up on Thursday, July 21st. Okay, Lunch Bunch is always the third Thursday of the month from noon to 1, right here on your little screen. Our program is going to feature our new head football coach, Brandon Moore. And he's been associated with Mines football for a number of years, but now has moved into the head coach position upon the retirement of Greg Brandon last season. And if you followed Mines football last year, holy smokes, they were a powerhouse. And made it to, Andy, correct me, round 3 of the national or NCAA playoffs. Is that right?
Made it to the semifinals, number 3 in the nation.
So, you know, it's getting to be football season, and we are really excited that Coach Moore is going to take some time to tell you about his strategy, talk about some of the players, and a little bit about himself too. He's a pretty impressive guy. So we hope you'll join us. This is posted, as we've been referring to this whole time now, on our Lunch Bunch page of the alumni website. You'll see it there. You probably saw it when you registered for this one. All of our programs are listed there, and we have speakers scheduled out through September. We will be plugging in the remaining fall months here shortly, so keep an eye on that. And we welcome you back. So, and of course, as Andy mentioned earlier, would love to hear your ideas for future speakers. If there's a faculty member, a student program, a Mines community program, whatever's on your mind that you want to hear more about or learn more about, we want to know it so we can provide that to you. I feel like a PBS ad. Hey, but it's true. We want to provide the programming that you want to hear. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time today. And Andy, is there any last words you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, everybody have a great day. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Anjali. Really, really informative and a great discussion. And Women of Mines is doing great things, and we couldn't be happier with how that interest group's moving forward. And thank you all for attending. Have a great day. Go Ore Diggers.